All right, I think we're live. I think we are live. Studio. Let's see. What's happening, everybody? Just in case we are live. Yeah, we're definitely live. We are clicking. All right, let's do it.
As a dentist and
Yeah, we don't care. We brush our teeth. I'm pretty sure most of us do. What's up, everybody? What is happening? What is happening? What's going down around town? So, guess what I just learned today? That not all British people talk the same. I didn't know that. I thought they all spoke the same. But like there's like the like over here in America, how there's like, the country accents and the urban accents and the northern accent, the southern, it's like that in England. I didn't know that. I got a cousin that live over there. A couple of them, you know. And I kind of been working on my English, my British a little bit. So, you know, that's pretty cool. Learning a second language and all. Anyway, I hope you guys got that joke. That was a dad joke. D Allen, what's happening, man? What's up, bro? Sorry, I ain't really been in touch, man. I've it's a busy season and I've been a busy little bee. You know what I mean? Yeah, been a busy bee. So anyway, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another show. I've been gone for a minute, but I'm back, and I keep going away and coming back and taking these long breaks. But it's not because I don't like you guys. I really miss you guys when I'm not going live. But man, I just most nights I'm just so tired. I get up early, I come home late, and I'm been a busy little bee, like I've been saying. So forgive me, but we're here because there's more to discuss, and I haven't gotten to it yet. So we're gonna get to it now. There's a lot happening. There's been this picture of the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter going around, and there's been this big debate as to whether this image is AI or is it what's the word I'm looking for? Is it AI or is it an authentic, authentic image? And I've been taking a look at both sides of the argument because I'm not 100% sure, but what I do know is what I talked about in the last show. This is what I firmly believe based on the circumstances, the situations, preceding events, possible succeeding events, and so on. And the just the whole nature of things, the manifesto, everything just screamed they let it happen. At the very least, they let it happen. But it's starting to look more like somebody might have put this guy up to it. But, I mean, this has been the suspicion in every instance. And what's crazy is even if, let's say, this is just a staged event or like completely staged, like the guy's a hired actor or whatever, because I'm not taking that off the table. I'm just saying the side that I lean towards is more on the side of this guy really was a nutball. The Trump administration and security knew it. They knew he was there, and they let him pull the stunt so they could stop him before he, became any more of a threat than he already was, and use it for publicity. And that's exactly what's happening because it's getting a lot of publicity. But the other issue that's getting even more publicity, it seems like, is this war in Iran thing. Everybody's up in arms and everybody's all uptight about it. And oh, America's losing the war and Trump's trying to send in ground troops, and that's a bad idea because Iran and blah, 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 blah. They don't get it, y'all. They don't get it. They don't get it because you see, here's why they don't get it. Because they're going based off of what's being shown on the surface. Everything that they talk about pertains to what we hear in the media. But what we don't hear in the media are other voices that put out other information that gets suppressed and we never know about it. I mean, I've been on YouTube since what, 2018, 2019, I'm pretty sure the majority of you guys haven't been following me that long. Some of you for more years than others, but very few for that long. You know what I'm saying? So all the information that I put out before you even knew who I was, you would have to go physically look for that now in order to find it. Otherwise, to you, it doesn't even exist. You see what I'm saying? So that's how the suppression of information kind of works. And they love to do the censorship thing and get you to censor yourself, or they take action and censor you themselves based on these fake made up guidelines and whatnot. And they do that to make sure that whatever narrative they're trying to sell, I mean, we all know this, whatever narrative they're trying to sell, it's going to sell. And this whole war in Iran thing, the narrative is Trump is fighting Iran on behalf of Israel and he's losing. That's basically been the narrative. And that's what everybody's been saying. Yeah, thank you, Tendy Town. Thank you for pointing that out. He says Citizen Man at 3,000 subs for the past 5 years. That's how bad it is. And he says, yo, Trump, what's going on with this dude? So the war in Iran thing, again, you got to remember what you're looking at, what you're being shown, what the big names are talking about is the surface narrative, the mainstream narrative, and this is what's being put out to the public. But like I said, there's more happening because Iran has been heavily infiltrated by the Israelis, and we went over that in detail, I believe, either in the last show or the show before that. I'm not exactly sure, but we've gone over that. I've shown my evidence to support that theory, right? And well, to prove that fact, it's no longer theory because the Iranians themselves have been saying it. And we've seen evidence of it. But anyway, and the war is to assist the Iranian government in removing the infiltrated government. Because if you have a nation whose government has been infiltrated from the top down, what needs to happen in order to remove that infiltration is to remove that entire government. It's too dirty now. You can't have it anymore. Regime change is necessary. I mean, that's kind of what happened in America with Trump. It just wasn't It wasn't a big physical war. It wasn't, I mean, there were riots in the streets, but that was the losers rioting because they were mad that they lost. But nevertheless, and we all acknowledge that our voting system is insanely corrupted and there's magnitudes of fraud that we couldn't even begin to imagine because that's how they keep their players in place. Absolutely. But the fraud has been so deeply entrenched for so long, and this is from past presidencies up until Trump, right? That they knew what the metrics were in terms of who was going to vote, how many were going to vote which way. So they set the levels of fraud to where they would be able to counter whoever. If the unfavorable person won, they could counter it with the fraud and put their favorable person in power. They did this. We saw this with Bush and Kerry in 2004 when the final deciding votes went to Florida, and Jeb Bush was George Bush's brother, who was the governor of that state at the time. And Brenda Snipes, I believe her name was the one who was in charge of the election board down there, and they decided the election for George Bush. I mean, your brother's the governor. Obviously, you're going to get in. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So that was one big example of it. And what happened in 2016 was unprecedented. And this is what people fail to realize. They just tell themselves, oh, the elections are rigged and the votes don't count. And that's it. They just take it off the table. They don't look at the intricacies of the actual corruption in the system. It's all been shown to us now. We know how it rolls, right? So what happened in 2016 was Hillary was the favorite. They were putting out Time, what was it? Time magazine that put out the Madam President cover a week before the a week before the election. So they thought that the voter turnout was going to be similar to the Obama Romney in 2012 and Obama McCain in 2008 numbers. And in Obama McCain in 2008, I believe, was when Barack Obama, it was either 08 or 12, I'm not sure, but Barack Obama got a 9% new voter turnout, which was the highest new voter turnout percentage any president in U.S. presidential elections history has had. So the level of fraud that they had in place for Hillary only accounted for a 9% new voter turnout. But what happened with Trump, because he started making his rounds on social media instead of just relying on TV, because that was around the time when people were transitioning from watching TV to social media. This was literally right before the censorship happened. Trump got a 15% new voter turnout. So the usual split between Republican Democrats happened. The 9% new voter turnout in Trump's favor was counteracted by the fraud in place for Hillary, but the fraud did not account for the added 6%. So that added 6% then became the deciding votes that tipped the scales in Trump's favor. That's how it happened. That's how the fraud was literally overridden, because 15% of 15% of all the voters were new voters that turned out to vote for Donald Trump. This is what happens when the people decide to take their power back, because literally all the power we have is, one, our vote, and two, our voice, and our voices are systematically suppressed. Because look at all the shit you got to go through just to appeal to the court for something. Look at all the shit you got to go through just to get in touch with your congressperson that you voted for, that's supposed to be representing you. You know what I'm saying? So our most of our power is limited. And one of those limits is voting. And this is why Trump has always talked about voting as a sacred right, because it is. People have fought and died for that shit. Black people, you know what I'm saying? And that was for a reason. And the reason was that was their sacred right to decide who gets control of their nation. And when that right started to systematically become obsolete and overridden with the rigged system that they put in place, in 2020, Trump then employed the military to monitor all the fraud and address it by going after the people in charge of it, because at that point it was systematic. The operations actually started in 2018 in the midterms, but it rolled into 2020, then 2022, and then 2024 came and we actually had a clean election. So this is what they were doing. And if you go back through the history books in the 2 years following the election, November of whatever year, whether it's 2018, 2020, so it will be in the 2 years between, so it'll be 2019 and 2020 to account for all the fraud that happened in 2016. You look at 2021 to 22, you look at this, you examine the same metrics, you go from 23 and 24, and you look at the metrics, and what you'll find is there's an increase in arrests for not voter fraud but election fraud. This is another way the media lies to us. When they talk about this issue, they say voter fraud. Go back, you can pull up all the clips on CNN and everything. They never use the term election fraud. They pretend as if that term doesn't even exist. And the reason for that is because election fraud is their strategy. Voter fraud is their cover. And in comparison to the election fraud, there's very little voter fraud. And the difference is the fraud is being committed by the person casting the ballot. That's the voter committing the fraud. And election fraud is committed by the person counting the ballot. Remember in 2020, all the people that were posting on Twitter bragging about throwing out Trump ballots? Remember that? Remember all the crates and boxes of mail-in ballots that were all fake duplicates that they brought in to swell the vote for Joe Biden after they shut down the elections in Fulton County, Georgia? Remember that? Well, people were being indicted and arrested for that. We just weren't hearing about it. And there's been this through Operation Cybercom. There's been this massive military operation to monitor elections being carried out by the National Guard is the one that's been mentioned mainly, but I'm sure there's other elements attached. But and you can read about this in the Military Times. I've done it. So for you guys that have been following me this long, you know that I'm not bullshitting you. You can look it up, and maybe I'll have to do another stream to verify all of this for the new viewers. But nevertheless, once Trump took power, that was our regime change. And this is why we saw record numbers of federal judges being fired and new ones being appointed. We saw record numbers of federal employees losing their jobs. We saw like a complete house cleaning. And it was kind of low key in the earlier years. And remember, this has been 10 years now since we've been in the era of Trump. His political run has lasted 10 years already. And he's still the talk of the town. That in itself is freaking nuts. But nevertheless. And so 2024 comes around. The elections are clean. Trump gets in again. And now that he got in through legal means, through, what's the word I'm looking for? A more legitimate election process. He now has more legitimate authority because he really, truly has a mandate from the American people to do what he's doing. And one of the biggest things that he's doing is he's separating the United States from Israel, and he's allowing Israel to fall. But the problem with him going public about it, and this is why he's pretending to be on the side of Israel with this staged war, is because the American population is being held hostage and we don't even know it. This is why they opened up the borders and let all the illegals in. Those were the sleeper cells. And this is why they've been doing the ICE raids since Trump got elected, and they've been busting the sleeper cells, and they're still going after more because there's still more coming in. They're just not coming in the numbers they were under Biden. So the operations are still going on. The manpower is still being brought in. It's just not as, as well manned as it was before because they've lost a lot of their soldiers in these ICE raids. So the country is still being held hostage. And if Trump were to come out publicly and say exactly what it is that he's doing, that would upset his Israeli friends. And they would then trigger mass casualty events here at home in the United States, killing mass numbers of American citizens because that's their plan. They did it in Iran, remember? And that was what, last summer? They did it in Iran? Yeah, we covered that, didn't we? They're going to try to pull the same thing here at home. And the media is going to create this big firestorm and they're going to blame it all on Donald Trump. And he's going to, and essentially his political career is going to go down in flames. And the American people are going to go down in a river of blood. I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking at. And if you go back through history, the biggest terrorist attack that happened on U.S. soil, which was 9/11, 2001. I was 14 years old when it happened, so I remember that day. That was, guess who was involved in that? Or how about the most recent actual presidential assassination, JFK? Guess who had a hand in that? So these people mean business and they're all over. They're well embedded. It's funny. I was talking to somebody on the phone today. I can't remember who it was. And they were talking about how in recent years there's been this unusual amount of plane crashes. And I told them, I said, hey, man, I did. There was a whole rash of planes falling out the sky back in like 2024. And I did a whole live stream on that. That was crazy. And yes, we are at war. And a lot of these infiltrators are in aeronautics and you know, aircraft, they're aircraft mechanics and shit. So they have access to sabotage things. And the problem of appeasing the American people by telling them what he's really doing, the problems that will come from that are much greater than him basically falling on the sword, going down in flames, tarnishing his own image by starting a war and losing it. Because if he does that, what happens is all the heat comes down on him. But if he goes the other way and reveals what he's actually doing, all the heat comes down on us. And it's funny because as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I've never had this thought before. So that's basically, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what he's doing. He's taking all the heat. So we don't have to face the consequences of him going the route of political popularity. And everybody that's seeing what he's doing as unpopular and, you know, talking bad about him, this is just like Operation Warp Speed. They don't realize the genius behind what he's doing and how he's covering their very own asses and their families' asses by doing the shit that's prompting them to throw dirt on them. Remember when Q said trust the plan? Q said trust the plan for a reason. And the reason is there will be times when moves will be made that will appear questionable. That's when trust is needed the most. So trust the plan applies to moments like this. And what's funny to me is that's what I've done throughout this whole 10 years, especially after the 2020 election with the fake Joe Biden coming in. Everybody was talking about President Biden, even Trump, until recently he started revealing that wasn't really Biden with the whole auto pen thing. And I was one of the few voices showing people, hey, this guy's not Joe Biden. This is a body double. This is not Joe Biden. This is someone else pretending to be Joe Biden. And I did several streams showing you guys that shit. And whoever was running the scenes, I suspect it was DOD, whoever was running that were deliberately making bloopers in the videos to show us how fake it was. And I watch so many people with so many big channels and solid names and well-known people that should be well researched enough to know better, just go along with the narrative. And I couldn't understand it. But I saw what was happening and I started talking about what was happening because nobody else was. Everybody was talking about what was being presented. And I've been right. So I trust the plan because I can understand the plan. And this is why I speak on these subjects, because I noticed that most people have no idea what's going on and they're just going with what's on the surface. They're working themselves up into a tizzy. They're getting all disappointed and mad and, oh, I supported Trump for all these years and this is what he does and he's kissing Israel's ass and like, relax, man. It's not that serious. Relax. We know the war is being staged. So if we know the war is being staged, they're telling us there's a war happening that's not really happening. At least not to the extent that they're telling us it's happening. So if they're telling us we're losing the war, how do we know we're actually losing the war? We're not over there to see what's going on. So we have no idea if any of this is even happening. That's number one. But number two, even if it is happening, now we want to believe the mainstream media. Now we're going to go with the narrative that they put out. Like, you see how inconsistent that is. But ladies and gentlemen, that's why I am here. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Please hit that like button. We got damn, we got a light audience tonight, man. Y'all, I guess people started giving up on me. I guess that's what's been happening. But it's all good. It's all good. Shout out to Sarah for the Cash App. Shout out to LTO for the Cash App. Shout out to my man Todd for the Venmo. Appreciate y'all. Damn, we starting off strong tonight. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Let's keep it rolling. Why don't you keep the block clicking? But make sure you guys go follow me on Rumble. We are live on Rumble as well. Shout out to the Rumble audience. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up when you get in. And if you haven't subscribed to the Rumble page or created a Rumble account, get your butt over there, create a Rumble account, look up Citizen Man. I go by Citizen Man on Rumble, not Citizen Man TV, and subscribe. Give me a follow. What are y'all doing? Support the channel, support the message. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of supporting the channel, if you guys would like to continue keeping the block clicking and keeping those donations rolling, you could do so via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the bottom of the YouTube chat in the gray box that says Citizen Man TV in yellow. I feel so weird saying that. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, all the links are there. And you can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. There might be a few with it missing, but I'm not sure. So the Red X through the PayPal, by the way, is just to remind you guys that PayPal censors comments, and they will, by censoring your comment, they will freeze your account and steal your money. So please be aware of what you say on PayPal because they be tripping. So just keep that in mind. Why don't you? Just keep that in mind. So anyway, let's get to it. Let's get to it. Nothing is what it seems. Nothing is what it seems. The world's a stage. People say that all the time, and most of them don't even know what it means. Hell, that rhymed. Damn, that rhymed again. I didn't even know I did that. Now I'm talking like an elf, like one of those elven folk. More on the would-be White House correspondence dinner shooter and why is Trump losing the war with Iran? Yes. Yes. Why is this happening? This is nuts. Trump is losing his freaking mind, isn't he? He's just out of his mind. He's lost it. He's gone. He's gone. Pumpkin08 says this theory doesn't make any sense. Well, I guess the mainstream media makes more sense, doesn't it? Now, have you watched my past streams? Because I've never seen you before, so I highly doubt you've ever seen me before, but that's okay. Go back and watch the last stream and you'll see what I'm talking about. I haven't even put out my theory as to why Trump is losing the war with Iran yet. That's the funny part. I just put out past theories that I've provided supporting evidence for. And I've also put out facts that you may not know that I also provided supporting evidence for. So if you be so kind, or at least intellectually honest, let's do some research before we start passing judgment. You know what I'm saying? Because if what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to everybody else in the room, well, there's a bit of a disconnect happening there. And you know what that disconnect is? You haven't seen the previous shows. You see what I'm saying? That's how these things work, you know? Give me a second. Let me grab my drink. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. The entire Iran war still costs less than the Minnesota fraud. And I don't know how true this is, but I challenge you, right? I challenge you to do some research on it and see if this is actually true. Because if you think about the Minnesota fraud numbers, hundreds of millions of dollars per year for probably 2 decades, maybe 15 years or so. Let's say 15 years. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. So if one of you guys would be so kind as to do that math for us, that'd be great. Speaking of fraud, check this out. Former Democratic mayoral candidate in Plainfield, New Jersey, Henry Lynn Ibezim admits to, definitely not American, admits to forging nearly 1,000 voter registration applications during the 2021 Democratic primary. He was caught with a garbage bag full of fake forms he tried to mail in. Another stunning example of Democrat election fraud exposed. And you see what happened? He got caught in 2021. That's crazy. That means the investigations were going on. He was being watched. Because how did they know to target that random guy, that one random time with a trash bag full of items that he's going to the mailbox with? Like, how did they know? Because they knew who he was and what he was up to and who he was working with. That's how. And remember, I told you, people have been getting arrested for election fraud since Trump has came into office. The numbers have exploded. We just don't hear about it. This guy got arrested in 2021, apparently. So let's continue. The actor who ended up playing Joe Biden's body double for nearly 2 years will turn state's evidence to avoid jail time, according to sources close to the FBI's investigation. So there's an FBI investigation into this Joe Biden impersonator. So there really was a Joe Biden impersonator. Who knew? Who knew? Oh, wait, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I knew. We knew. We knew. We knew. The suspect was hired to stand in one place for 10 minutes, said a special agent. That's how it began. That means there was more. Before he knew it, the subject was sitting behind the Resolute desk and taking calls from foreign leaders. A birthday party impressionist ended up the leader of the free world, if only for a few minutes here and there. So there was an actor pretending to be Joe Biden. This is why he kept looking different every time we saw him on camera, because it was a different person. And what did I tell you? Did I not tell you guys celebrity impersonators are who they use to replace these people? And did I not show you the Google searches to these agencies that provide celebrity impersonators? Did I not prove to you that this is an actual industry? I mean, we know this. Did I not show you the side by sides of the real people and their body doubles? Did I not also show you images of these celebrities with their twin siblings that nobody knows about? I did, didn't I? Now the FBI is investigating one of these people. So this is the confirmation. It's no longer just a theory. And it was a damn good theory because there was more than enough proof to support what we were seeing, because we were freaking seeing it. But now there's a whole FBI investigation into it. So how about that? Dozens of West Wing staffers were complicit in pulling off the ruse. The whole building had to be on it. And this goes back to one of those questions that people like to ask, where they say, especially with the flat earth, globe earth debate, right? People like to say, so they just get everybody to lie? Yes. Everybody that they need to lie will lie. The people that are, turning the nuts and bolts, they probably think they're actually going to space too. Everybody else can be deceived. But the people that are directly involved at the very top with making these decisions and staging these scenes, well, yeah, they have to know, and they all have to lie, because they're all working on the same project and being paid exorbitant amounts of taxpayer funds to put out that fakery. So this speaks a little bit to my own credibility when it comes to this research and this stuff, because I've been saying this since 2021, that ain't Joe Biden. And what's funny is, I think it was like December 2020, December 2019, I think it was, and Trump said, Joe Biden is shot. Joe Biden is shot. And he was saying it as if Joe Biden was like, his mind was gone or whatever, but he literally meant Joe Biden was executed. And it's funny because there's a conversation in the Epstein files between two high-level individuals tied to Epstein, obviously, that were discussing Joe Biden's execution. Bet you didn't know that. Oh, I got to find that. I got to find that one, because I had a screenshot of it, and it's somewhere in my archives, and I'm going to take some time to look for that. Exactly, Agar Khan. Exactly. So anyway, right. Also, who said that? Jason M. Schmidt says that explains the moon landing nonsense. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. Aid says Satan and the deep state can't produce any actual hitmen to take out Trump. Doesn't anybody find that strange? Well, with the ICE raids going on, it's too hot in the streets to get a hitman, because ICE is hunting these people down. So, and the FBI is hunting them down too. So, no, they can't. Basically, it's too hot in the streets. Trump's too well insulated, and well, one nincompoop got through, but he didn't get very far. Remember what Q said: Trump will be insulated, because this is a very touchy time, and it's a very touchy time where if Trump makes any wrong moves in terms of his personal security and security for his family, let's not forget that part, they will get hit. I'm pretty sure there's people doing research right now trying to figure out how to infiltrate his circle and get to him. I mean, that guy that rushed the White House Correspondents' Dinner security checkpoint, I mean, that's pretty much what he did, isn't it? But I just love it when the stuff that I talk about that people say, oh, it's just conspiracy theory. Oh, that's stupid. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. And then the proof comes out. And the FBI is like, yeah, but yeah, there was a guy pretending to be Joe Biden. Don't you know? Wild to think QAnon was dismissed. It's not QAnon. It's Q and then they're anons. Q and anons, not QAnon, was dismissed as a completely insane conspiracy theory, even by me. And it took us all these years and citizens replacing journalists and the FBI to finally find out there actually was an elite sex trafficking ring protected by the powerful. The system failed so badly, we all owe them an apology. Yeah, a lot of people owe us apologies, but we'll never get them because that would require them to admit that they're wrong. And boy, oh boy, do people have a problem doing that. I tell you, jeez, that admitting that they're wrong ruins or failing to admit that they're wrong. They would rather ruin their relationship than admit that they're wrong. Like, fuck it, I'm right and I'll be right by my damn self. Like, that's what it is now. It's crazy. That's crazy. But anyway, Alex Jones officially shuts down InfoWars after 27 years on air. And I don't know what's really going on with the InfoWars thing, but I guess he might just be rebranding himself, because after I saw this, which I definitely had to share with y'all, I started thinking about how when Alex Jones flipped the script about the whole Sandy Hook thing, because we all know what happened at Sandy Hook, and we know Alex Jones was right before they sued him and tried to ruin him financially and all that. Like, we knew that. And then they got his ex-wife to turn on him and all kinds of weird shit started happening. I don't know if the ex-wife thing happened after Sandy Hook. That might have happened before, but I'm not 100% sure. But what I do know is they came down on him hard about that. And after that, he kind of softened up. And people were saying he's controlled opposition now. He's blackmailed by Israel, blah, 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 right? And some of that could actually possibly be true, but I don't believe it. But something definitely went wrong, and he definitely got weakened and watered down somehow. And the way that they did it is they threatened his sponsors. They, started, messing up his cash flow. And now essentially he's been forced to shut down his operation. Hopefully he just rebrands and starts something else and does what Dame Dash did. Got out of that mainline big money game and just went independent. Go from the big money game to the independent money game. Because you could be just as profitable in the independent money game as the big money game. You just got to work a lot harder. But it's not impossible. People do it all the time. This is America. If you can do it, if there's anywhere on earth you can do that, it's here. That's why everybody wants to come here. So hopefully that's that will be the journey of Alex Jones, because he's been making the rounds. He went on Myron Gaines' podcast, and they had a whole couple hours of Israel-Iran talk, just all surface level shit. Like, I was so disappointed. I expected a lot more, but I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. Like, they were talking about all this shit that we already know about. But what's funny is, at the same time Alex Jones is shutting down InfoWars, I guess because they're running out of money, the Daily Wire fires half of its staff in mass layoffs. This comes as co-founder Ben Shapiro has lost 85% of his YouTube audience since last year. Yep, Ben Shapiro lost 85% of his audience because the American people are no longer in favor of this pro-Zionist bullshit. And now that we've seen what Israel's been doing to Gaza, to the Palestinians in Gaza, we now know that, most of the world is sick and tired of this Zionist bullshit. You know, if you want to be a country and you want to exist, sure, every country has a right to exist. But what you don't have a right to do is bomb the shit out of your neighbors and take their fucking land. Like, what is that? And in case people were wondering why Trump sat back and let it all happen, Trump was demanding that Israel stop, but he couldn't do anything about stopping them because the sleeper cells were here. The borders were opened up. The sleeper cells were here. He couldn't do shit. His hands were tied. And that's why he was so aggressive at going after the sleeper cells as soon as he got in office. Yeah, Ben Shapiro replaced Charlie Kirk with one of his own people. Yeah, they're like, finally, we got that gringo out of here. So Israel took full advantage. But what they didn't realize they were doing was they were stirring up a hornet's nest in Iran. But the reason why they took full advantage and Iran didn't do nothing or couldn't do nothing is because Iran itself was compromised and infiltrated just like America was. So Israel got the green light to do whatever they wanted to do. So what happened is America and Iran, through their connections to Russia, because remember, Trump is allied with Russia too. This is why Russia hasn't gotten involved in the U.S.-Iran thing. Remember, if that U.S.-Iran war was real, Russia would have gotten involved or they would have said something. They've said absolutely nothing. Go look it up. Putin hasn't said shit about the Iran war. Go look it up. But anyway, the Israeli government did so much shit that they not only pissed off their own people, but they pissed off every Arab nation around them that they've been targeting or allies of theirs that they've been targeting. And Iran is the number one nation that's been pissed off at Israel, and Iran has been bombing the shit out of Israel, and they're getting ready to really, really stick it to them, basically, right? So what's going on now is because Trump isn't doing so well in fighting off the Iranians, Israel is becoming, they're more and more under threat now. You see what's happening there? And I want you to take note of that because we'll get to that. Religious exemption has always been a trap. An American citizen should not be required under any circumstances to cite religion as a reason to refrain from receiving a medical procedure. Government, what's your response? What's your reason for refusing this vax? Citizen, it's none of your business what my reason is. Get the hell out of my life. I'll make my own medical decisions. And what's funny is people are made to believe that you have to vaccinate your kids to send them to public school. How many people, put a 1 in the chat if you think that, and it's not a trick question, if you think that you have to vaccinate your children to send them to public school? Put a 1 in the chat. Chad Hartkoff. Yeah, and Chad, don't feel bad about that, man. A lot of people, a lot of people don't know that they cannot force you to vaccinate your child. But what they don't tell you is what makes you believe that you have to do it. And what they don't tell you is by law, all 50 states have to offer exemptions for your child to not be vaccinated in order to go to school. And that vaccine exemption form is what you submit to the school in place of the shot records. And by law, they have to accept it. But they don't tell you this. They make sure that you don't know this. They just ask for the shot record. Now, if we were dealing with an open and honest government that wasn't intended on doing your kids harm with their chemical weapon, their biochemical vaccine warfare, you know what they would actually ask you for? Do you have a shot record or an exemption form? That's what they would ask you for, because both are legally accepted documents to basically cover that requirement of medical information. Right or wrong? Right. So why do they only ask for one and not the other? Because it's a deliberate way to deceive you into believing that that's the only thing that you have to submit to them. So now you got to take your kid down to the doctor, get them stuck with all these needles while they're screaming their little eyes out, and stuck with all this shit you can't even pronounce. And then they get to go to school. And millions of kids every year go through that process, and they get damaged. Never to be the same again. Millions and millions of parents have seen this. 2 days after he got his vaccines, hours after he got his vaccines. And parents have still been lining up to do this to their kids. And that's because those parents that have been crying out, their voices have been silenced. Because when you have a doctor saying, no, it wasn't that, it was something else that messed up your kid, and the parent saying, no, that's what messed up my kid, the general public tends to lean on the side of the doctor because we're taught to blindly trust these people. But what if these people have an agenda? That's the mentality you have to have. There is an agenda, and the people who work in that system have, their job is to push you in the direction of whatever that agenda is. It's not in your whether it's in your best interest or not. And when it comes to this specific treatment, this procedure, it's not in your best interest. And in most states, they offer medical exemptions if the child's family members have a history of adverse reactions to vaccines. And those adverse reactions are the noticeable effects, because they're effects that people don't notice. Like, your kid gets the vaccine, now he's a little retarded. He's a little slower than he was, but he's still functional. So everything seems okay, but his mind is gone. But the kids who get rashes and get food allergies and all that bullshit, and have doctors that are at least honest enough to say, yeah, that happened from the vaccine. This is a common side effect of the vaccine. Then you get a medical exemption. And in some states, they get around that by forcing you to get a doctor's signature on the medical exemption form. And well, because the doctors are part of the agenda and they get paid handsomely for sticking your kids with this poison, what doctor are you going to get to sign that thing? So now now you've reached a roadblock where you're going to eventually give up and go take your kid in to go get that poison so they can go to school. But the religious exemption form is the one that they can't bar you from, no matter what. You don't need anybody's signature on it but your own. But so a lot of people have come to agree with the medical exemption form. I mean, with the religious vaccine exemption form. But the point that Representative Clay Higgins is making is that there's an underlying problem there in the system where these exemption forms are even needed. Because if the exemption forms are needed, then the presumption is they're needed in place of they're needed to exempt your kid from something that is required, which means now we have a situation where the government is requiring medical procedures. And that in itself is the underlying problem. Government should not be requiring medical procedures. Thus, there should be no such thing as a shot record for your kid to go to school in the first damn place. 88 says the vaxxed should be deleted already. Well, here's the thing. According to Dr. Fauci's own analysis, and he said this, and he kind of said this without knowing that he was saying it in an interview many, many years ago, back in the 90s when they were actually a little more honest on TV. And he was laying out a scenario for rushing vaccines, and he was saying, well, we could put this vaccine out and do the test trials and so on, and we could run the test for 3 or 4 years, and everything seems normal. The adverse reactions are at minimal and this and that, but then 8 years go by and it gets worse. 10 years go by and it gets worse. Then after 12 years, we're going to be like, what have we done? So based on that statement, I believe that there's a 12-year window before things really start to go haywire. And you know what? 88, I don't know how you pronounce that. To help me pronounce that if I'm doing it wrong. The vaxxed have been dying in mass numbers, but it hasn't been reported. That's another one of those bits of information that's been suppressed from the public. Do you know to date more people have died from the COVID vaccine than actual COVID? Do you know that? That is an actual CDC statistic based on medical records and death records. And remember, whatever the numbers are, the number for the people whose deaths have been attributed to the COVID vaccine, that's just a fraction of the actual number of people who've died from the COVID vaccine. Because now we have to take into consideration all the coroners and doctors that would be willing to lie and say it was something else other than the vaccine. You see what I'm saying? So, sure, there are vaccinated people that haven't fallen yet. Could be that they got lucky and got saline or a watered down version of it, or their bodies were in probably a better condition and were able to suppress the effects of it. And what I noticed, the trend of people dropping dead from heart attacks right after they put out the vaccine was it was a lot of younger people and active people. So it seems like it's a thing. It's one of those weapons where when your heart rate increases and there's a lot of movement with an increase in heart rate, that's when the problems happen. But as long as your heart rate stays, low and you remain in low activity, you tend to last a little longer. This is why you're not seeing too many elderly folks just falling over from it because they're not very active. But we're seeing kids have heart attacks. When the fuck have we seen that in such record numbers? These are kids that got the vax. And guess what? Kids consistently have elevated heart rates because they're more active than adults. So that would make sense, wouldn't it? And one of the biggest issues in the movie Died Suddenly that was showing what was happening to these people's blood vessels as a result of the vaccine. These growths start to develop in the blood vessels and in the heart. And this is what accounts for all those heart attacks. And remember the epidemic of blood clotting that was happening? It's still happening. There's just now millions of people walking around that didn't have blood clotting before, and now they do. And them and the people around them either haven't thought that maybe it's the vaccine, or maybe they know it's the vaccine, but they don't have a voice. So who's going to know? Yeah, that football player that passed out on the field, I think I covered that, and he actually died. And they put out fake pictures and a fake video of him doing a fake CGI interview as if he was really still alive. And then they brought out some guy to the football field that's supposed to be him, but he was missing the tattoo. I didn't know your tattoos disappear when you fall out with a heart attack. I didn't know heart attacks got rid of tattoos. That's interesting. But anyway, let's move on. Trump is prosecuting a civil rights group that infiltrates and exposes the KKK. So the Courier is actually one of these leftist outlets that spins everything to make it sound like it's racist or it's anti-American as long as it's Trump doing it. And you know what they're referring to with this twisted, this tailspun headline? They're referring to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the people that run that organization being indicted for funding the KKK. Yes, paying the KKK. Which means the KKK is their organization. That's why Trump's prosecuting them. They don't infiltrate and expose the KKK. KKK don't do shit. So there's nothing to expose. That's number one. And number two, if you infiltrate the KKK, that means you're admitting that they put on white sheets and Klan hoods and go march with these guys. They do. I think they're for real. I don't think they're infiltrating. But you see how they spin it though? That's wild work. That is wild work. That's all I can say about that. So check this out. Big changes happening in the world. It's official. President Milei and Argentina have withdrawn from the World Health Organization following President Trump's lead. Every self-respecting country should be doing the same. Reject the globalist cabal. Yeah, and if you've been following the news recently, you've been seeing, I'm sure you've come across articles about headlines about this new infectious virus that's spreading and blah, 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 blah. They're trying to fear monger you. And as long as you don't pay that shit no mind, like we should have been like COVID, what the fuck is that? And just lived our lives, there would have been not a damn thing they could have done about it. Nothing. But so many people were paralyzed with fear because, again, they believed the media, went along with the bullshit, and literally lost their right to go to work without having to get shot up with experimental coof juice. That's what I'm going to call it, the coof juice. So President Trump says, great job by hardworking Scott Presler on Fox and Friends talking about using the filibuster or talking filibuster in order to pass the Save America Act, an 88% issue with all voters. It must be done immediately. It supersedes everything else, must go to the front of the line. I, as president, will not sign other bills until this is passed. And not the watered down version. Go for the gold. Must show voter ID and proof of citizenship. No mail-in ballots except for military, illness, disability, travel. No men and women's sports. No transgender mutilization for children. What does it say at the bottom? Do not fail, President Donald J. Trump. I think that's a good idea to decide not to sign any other bills until they pass it. And you see how the Save America Act has to do with voter ID and proof of citizenship. Don't you need proof of citizenship to get a driver's license? You know what that proof of citizenship is? It's actually, excuse me, it's actually your social security number as proof of legal residency. That's why they came up with the Real ID Act in the first place, because now you got all these illegals in these sanctuary states being given state driver's license by these sanctuary states, but because they don't have social security numbers, they can't get Real ID. So now if they go to another state where they actually enforce immigration laws and they get pulled over by a cop and the cop sees that they don't have a star on their driver's license or the Real ID mark or whatever it is, now that cop knows that they don't have a social security number. And I know people that don't have Real ID and they get hassled for it. But the purpose of it is to weed out the people who aren't supposed to be here, which I think is perfectly fair because in other countries, they do the same thing. And with voting, voting is a sacred right reserved for citizens of America because non-citizens do not have a vested interest in America. Their allegiance is to a foreign nation. So the proof of citizenship is necessary to prevent people who aren't from America or don't belong to America, let me say that, voting in American elections. I think that makes perfect sense. That's perfectly clear. No other country on earth allows foreigners to vote in their elections like that. Well, maybe in Europe now they do, but that wasn't always the case. And this goes back to my point that I was making at the beginning of the show when I was telling you guys that President Trump takes voting very seriously, because without people being able to cast a ballot, they would not have been that 15% new voter turnout that defeated Hillary Clinton. If Hillary Clinton would have gotten in to office, millions more of Americans would have probably died or committed self-deletion by now, because life in this country would have become so hellish that it would have been unbearable. Look what happened under the 4 years of the fake Biden presidency. Look how bad things got. Look how crazy shit got. Look how quickly it devolved. What do you think would have happened under Hillary? Same thing, but worse, because it would have been economic collapse plus open borders plus the pandemic. Oh, what a shitstorm that would have been. Trump's team wants to replace the income tax with tariff revenue. No more money out of your paycheck. Foreign imports foot the bill instead. That's actually how America funded itself before 1913. Raise your hand if you want your full paycheck back. I think that's a great idea. I think that's one of the best ideas, and getting rid of the damn property tax too. Income tax and property tax. Those are the two biggest thefts. Sales tax, I can understand sales tax, because when that item gets brought into the country, the tariff is a tax. If that item gets produced in this country, when it gets sold from the manufacturer to the supplier, that is, that supplier now has to pay that tax. There's a tax involved. So I get it. The sales tax makes sense, right? To a degree. But when they start getting into the 7%, 8%, 10%, sales tax shouldn't be more than 1 or 2%, honestly. So with a 1 or 2% sales tax, zero income tax, and tax on imports, the foreign importers who are sending that shit over here, they have to pay that tax. So that brings foreign money into the country. And the government then funds itself on that revenue, which means that all that extra money they got to throw around to bribe witnesses and pay rats in the FBI and pay off, judges and prosecutors and, fund all their corruption and their bullshit and all these big bloated agencies with all these nincompoops with too much power. I mean, how often have we seen that? You know what I'm saying? Like all that shit, there would be no funding for that. So it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist. And this is why the mainstream media was going so hard against the tariffs. Because if the tariffs replace income tax, then all that bullshit they've been funding off our income tax money, well, if it doesn't get abolished, it will be drastically reduced, which means less government. So if you want no government, guess where you have to start? Less government. If you want to draw a line, you first have to make a dot. That is a fact of life. There's no way around that. That is what I call a prime principle of existence. And if you want to get rid of something, moving in the direction of drastically reducing it is the best way to go about it, especially when you're dealing with a government. Because the people that work in these agencies that will no longer exist, they have to have a transition period where they move out of these agencies and either into other agencies, but the vast majority of them would be moving into the private sector. That's how that would work. And this is why I never had a problem with the tariffs, because I understood what the purpose of the tariffs was: to create revenue that will replace our income tax so they don't have to steal our fucking money that we work for. And guess what? It's actually happening. Trump's putting all the pieces in place. This whole Strait of Hormuz thing, oh, wait till you see what happens when it's over. I am pleased to announce that based on the fact that the European Union is not complying with our fully agreed to trade deal, next week I will be increasing tariffs charged to the European Union for cars and trucks coming into the United States. The tariffs will be increased to 25%. It is fully understood and agreed that if they produce cars and trucks in the USA, in USA plants, there will be no tariff. Many automobile and truck plants are currently under construction with over $100 billion being invested, a record in the history of car and truck manufacturing. These plants, staffed with American workers, will be opening soon. There has never been anything like what is happening in America today. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. You see? And that's another thing with the tariffs. It's going to force a lot of domestic production, and domestic production means more money flowing. It means more cities are going to have higher employment rates, and that's a good thing. Sure, it's just a job, and all they do is give us jobs. Well, if you're a smart if you're smart, you don't even have to be a smart person. You just have to be smart enough to know that any form of income is a stepping stone to a higher form of income. It just depends on your level of income. The adjustments that you'll have to make in your life depends on your level of income. That's it. The implementation of your strategy, the speed of the execution and implementation of your strategy will vary depending on the level of your income. But if you implement the strategy correctly, no matter how much money you make or how much money you don't make, you will see the same result: guaranteed increase. Point blank, period. There's no way around it. So when people scoff at, oh, all they do is give us jobs and this and that, what they're doing is they're providing the smart, hardworking people a platform to do something for themselves. Start earning some basic income, because a lot of Americans, unfortunately, more than not, find themselves year after year starting from zero with less and less opportunity. But if they had an opportunity to bring home a paycheck and they can do that consistently for a year or two, guess what? If they saved enough money, they could invest in something. And now they have more income. That's how it works. Sometimes it'll take 5 years. Sometimes it might take 10 years. But guess what? The ball's rolling. The machine is working. It's just moving slow. But that's the point. Get the machine working. And that's what this manufacturing stuff is going to cause. And that's a big deal for Americans. And guess what else, guys? Where there's manufacturing, what's needed for manufacturing? Can anybody guess where I'm going with this? If you have a manufacturing plant, what do you need? If you run out of this, all manufacturing stops. Nothing can be made. Aside from the workers, what do you need? I'm going to anticipate that somebody got it right. What you need is materials, ladies and gentlemen. So even if, and a lot of those materials are going to have to be imported. So even if these foreign manufacturers come here to America to build their European cars and trucks, guess where their parts have to come from? Europe. So guess what? They're still paying the tariffs. Now, Power to the People asks a valid question. Power to the People says, what about a livable wage? Fair question. Now, by livable wage, do you mean high pay or lower cost of living? See, the cost of living part is the part that people ignore from the equation because they're under this belief that the cost of living can never decrease. Oh, but it can. We saw it happen in 2008 with the housing bubble, didn't we? Houses were selling for top dollar in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, then 2008. When all those people that bought those houses that didn't qualify for those mortgages couldn't make their payments, guess what happened? Boom, the bubble popped and the houses got foreclosed on and they sold for basement prices. So, as far as a livable wage, so that's just an example of how cost of living can sharply decrease, right? But as far as a livable wage, what will happen is if the tariff revenue replaces the income tax, the people will be bringing home more money on their paychecks. That's number one. Number two, these are European car manufacturers. This is Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, those guys. All right. And the people that work for those companies pay very, very well. So they will be getting a livable wage working at the Mercedes plant. I can assure you. They pay. And as that happens, and that plant gets rolling and they keep importing parts and paying the tariffs and more tariff revenue is coming in, guess what happens next? The property tax gets abolished because now it's phased out by the tariff revenue. And guess what that means? Rent prices go down. Cost of living decreases. And when that cost of living decreases to a reasonable amount, as it is in some parts of the country currently, what then happens is more opportunities begin to arise because then the smart, hardworking people that work at these jobs, they're going to go off and they're going to invest and build companies of their own, and they're going to employ people of their own. You know how many people do that? You know how many landscapers start out working for a landscape company? They learn the trade and then they go save up their money, invest their money, compound some interest for a couple of years, and then they take that money and they go invest in their own equipment and go off on their own. Those are the smart people. And guess what? The slave-minded, dumbed-down fools that think working hard to make somebody else rich is virtuous, guess what? They're going to stay at those jobs, and more of them are going to come in and fill those positions, and they're going to keep the machine going. And the smart people that have no other opportunity but to start out with that job, they're going to go to that job, they're going to build off of it, and they're going to make something of themselves. And another American legend is born, and another American legend is born. But without that springboard, they got nothing. You see, when economic policies are put in place that provides jobs for people, even the lowest level jobs, it's not necessarily a life that they're trying to provide for that person. You got to get out of that mentality that your job is supposed to provide you with a life, because not all jobs are designed to pay a livable wage. Like the person bagging your groceries at the grocery store. A grown-ass single mother with 6 kids should not be bagging groceries at the grocery store. She's failed in life. She should have more at that age, with all that time that's passed in her life, she should have invested some of that time into developing a skill. The time is there. You have 24 hours in a day. Work only requires 8 to 10. Sure, there's more time that you got to spend with the kids and all that, but that's the downfall. You've created distractions for yourself. But nevertheless, The people that are willing to put in the work and do the research and go through the learning process, they learn skills. And as they do it at a young age, and as they get older, they move up in the economic ladder because their skill set improves. And then the next young person graduating high school, in college, and just needs a part-time job doing some bullshit because they only need a couple dollars in their pockets to buy a couple extra soups every week, they'll be the ones bagging the groceries at the grocery store because that level job is designed for that type of person. For people who have support systems, younger people who still live with their families or roommates. You see what I'm saying? So when we talk about livable wages and all that shit, we never talk about skill level. We never talk about education level. And I don't mean college. I mean skills training, certifications, shit like that. Things that can break you into a better career field with higher pay, with livable wages. That's something you got to do for yourself. Nobody's going to do that for you. All the government can do is provide the base level jobs, which is the foundation, to get you back up and running so you can at least have an opportunity. So the jobs that they're creating with these economic policies are not there to give you a life per se. Some of them might, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to provide the opportunity to build the life. But it's up to you to build it. That's how that works. And you see, this is why a lot of people get mad and, oh, Republicans ain't do nothing for black people and Democrats don't do nothing for black. That's the wrong mentality. And it ain't just black people that say this. White people say it too. I just use that example because I hear that more. And I happen to be black too. The correct mentality is, what can I do for myself that I don't need the government for? Because when you start thinking the government don't do nothing for me, guess what the government's doing? That means they're doing their fucking job and staying out of your goddamn way because they're not supposed to do shit for you. Look what happens when the government does shit for us. The government helped provide us with the COVID vaccine, didn't they? They did that for us. Huh? Need I say it again? So when people complain that the government don't do nothing for, that's the wrong mentality to begin with. That is one of the most self-defeating statements you can even make. Because what you're actually saying is, I can't do shit for myself. I need the government to do it for me, and I'm mad that they're not doing it for me. That's the message. Those might not be the exact words that you're saying, but that's the message that you're conveying. That's the energy you're putting out. All the government can do is get out of the way, provide you the opportunity, and leave it up to the individuals to make of it what they will. And that's the best way to go about it, because if the government helped elevate everybody to the upper echelons of society, let's say the government did everything everybody wanted, right? And elevated everybody to the upper echelons of society. Black people all got their reparations. The liberal white people got their universal basic income, and the immigrants got their, care packages and all that bullshit. And everybody is getting money. Guess what would happen in a couple of years? The dumb ones who didn't deserve that money in the first place are all going to be poor again. And only the few smart ones are going to have more money than they started with. So the filtering process is going to carry out itself no matter what the government does. So the best we can ask for is the government to do the bare minimum, and we'll do the rest. Provide the opportunity, and we'll take advantage of them. That's it. That's all. It ain't the government's job to provide you a livable wage. It's your job to provide you a livable wage. It's the government's job to create an economic environment where your ass can get a damn job. Now, what kind of job that is, that's not up to the government. That's up to you. So you want to sit on your ass and play video games all day as a young man instead of getting out there and learning a skill. Guess what happens? You find yourself 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, worthless. And not worthless in the sense of humanity, because every human is worth something. Worthless financially, broke, penniless, starting from zero. Or you can get up off your ass while you're young and go learn a trade, go learn a skill. Look at the guys with the big trucks riding down the street with the construction clothes on. Ask them what they do for a living. Look at the contractors. Talk to them. You know how I'm a certified auto mechanic right now. I'm a certified auto technician. I got certified at Mid Florida Tech in Orlando, Florida, back in 2005, the year after I graduated high school. Actually, it was 2004 going into 2005 because I graduated in 04. And do you know that that's a skill that serves me to this day, to this very day, even in the line of work that I'm in, especially in the line of work that I'm in? And you know how I got into that? As a young man, I always was looking for ways to make money, and I've had jobs, and having a job it only got me so far, and there was something so unsatisfying about it. So I figured I need a better job. So one day I took my truck. This was 2005. I had a 97 Ford F-150. That's what I was driving back then. My dad had gave me that truck. And I took my truck to the shop to get a tune-up, and the guy charged me $250 for the tune-up. This was back when shit, prices made sense. And I was watching the guy work on my truck, and I was thinking to myself, and I'm looking at this dude, and he's all, fat and greasy and got tattoos everywhere. Like I could tell he's been to jail. Like, this guy was no more special than I was. But here he was working a job, making way more money than I was making, all because he knew how to work with those tools and work on that machine I called my vehicle. So I asked him, I said, "Hey man, how do you become a mechanic?" And he's like, "Oh, you got to go to tech school." And then the light bulb went off in my head, because a few months prior, when I was still a senior in high school, we had a talk one time about dual enrollment, where you can go to 12th grade for half, go to school for half the day, and then go to the tech school for the other half of the day and work on getting a certification. But I ended up graduating a year early from high school because, well, I'm nice like that. And you can tell what era I'm from. And I decided to go to Mid Florida Tech. And I went to Mid Florida Tech, signed up for the automotive program, and got certified. And yeah, I was fucking shit up, and I didn't know what I was doing. And 90% of the experience that I got was actually working on cars in the real world, seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. Amassing a massive stockpile of all kinds of tools, shit like that. But guess what would have happened if I would have not had that conversation with that guy, and I was out there on the phone arguing with a chick, or I had my mom come pick me up so I could go home and finish this run of Halo or whatever game it was that was hot at the time. The idea to go to tech school would have never dawned on me. And I would have still been working that bullshit job, still unhappy, still miserable, looking for something better to do. But I took the initiative. The government didn't come and say, hey, kid, you can go to tech school and be a mechanic. No, I saw an actual mechanic and I asked him. And when he gave me the information, I acted on it. And it has served me to this day. So all that, what the government has done for us, and the government don't do shit for us and this and that, that's the wrong mentality to have. You already lost. You've already lost. Because everything the government does for you comes at a price. And that price is usually your life, your health, or that of your children. So Donald Trump said something else that was questionable that got a lot of people up in arms. And I deliberately did not read this. I only read the underlined part. So I want to see what it says so we can, just kind of break it down a little bit and see what you guys think, or maybe just tell you guys what I think, because, well, it's my show. Anyway, hit that like button. Don't forget to hit the like button. We got 60 something on YouTube and 44 likes. What's happening, y'all? And we got 13 on Rumble, and we probably got like 2 likes. I was going to say 3, but we got 2, I think. So make sure you guys hit that like button, please. It says, I am working very hard with our great speaker, Mike Johnson, along with Chairman Jim Jordan and Chairman Rick Crawford to get a clean extension of FISA 702 through the House of Representatives this week. I am asking Republicans to unify and vote together on the test vote to bring a clean bill to the floor. We need to stick together when this bill comes before the House Rules Committee today to keep it clean. So FISA is the spying bill. And it was FISA that was used to spy on Trump's campaign. So why is Trump asking for FISA now? Well, when the dirty cop James Comey, the failed head of the FBI, went after me, he was using FISA Title I, the domestic collection, not FISA 702, the foreign collection, which needs to be extended today. While parts of FISA were illegally and unfortunately used against me in the Democrats' disgraceful witch hunt and attack in the Russia hoax, and perhaps would be used again, or perhaps would be used against me in the future, I am willing to risk the giving up of my rights and privileges as a citizen for our great military and country. Our military patriots desperately need FISA 702. And it is one of the reasons we have had such tremendous success on the battlefield. I have spoken with many in our military who say FISA is necessary in order to protect our troops overseas as well as our people here at home from the threat of foreign terror attacks. It has already prevented many such attacks, and it is very important that it remained in full force and effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So Donald Trump is not saying, he's willing to sacrifice his rights, so you guys should sacrifice your rights too. Because he's asking for FISA 702, which is the foreign collection. So this is the collection of, I guess, regulations that allows the military and the federal government to spy on foreigners domestically. But it can also be used to spy on citizens because let's say they peg a citizen as a foreigner mistakenly and they start spying on him and find out he's an actual citizen. Well, they just spied on a citizen, right? But here's the thing. That statement means absolutely nothing because guess what? They're spying on us already. Didn't Edward Snowden tell us that? Didn't Julian Assange tell us that? So it literally doesn't make a difference at this point. But Trump calling for the extension of FISA 702, and you notice he says, for our great military and country, our military patriots desperately need FISA 702. And it is one of the reasons we have had such tremendous success on the battlefield. And by battlefield, he means here at home with the ICE raids. Because they were spying on those foreign infiltrators, and that's how they knew who to hit and where to go. It was FISA 702. And these operations are still ongoing. And now we're in a phase of the operation where Trump is really pissing off Israel because, well, it looks like he's losing the war in Iran, which he can't lose. And I'll tell you why here shortly. So he's asking for FISA 702. So when he says, I'm willing to risk giving up my rights and privileges as a citizen, he's not saying he's willing to give up his rights and privileges as a citizen. He says he's willing to risk it, which means as a citizen, he has a right to privacy. So it's the federal government's discretion as to whether they're going to use it against him to violate his right to privacy or not. And well, the federal government is ran by his people, so they won't. And guess what? FISA Title I is still in effect, and that's what they're using to spy on all of us. It's not FISA 702. It's FISA Title I. So we're already fucking being spied on. So again, what difference does it make? Aside from allowing our military to gather more intel on these foreign infiltrators. And this is why Trump says from the threat of foreign terror attacks. This is in reference to the sleeper cells that ICE has been going after, ICE and the FBI. And the foreign terror attacks would be the mass casualty events carried out by the Zionists once Trump publicly admits that he's cutting ties with Israel. Hence the big act as a friend of Israel. And again, you notice Russia hasn't gotten involved. So here you got the big bad United States pounding the poor little Iran to dust with their fucking 500-pound, 1,000-pound bombs, helping poor little Israel. And Russia's not stepping in to help poor little Iran. Don't you guys find that odd? I mean, is this not the reason why past administrations haven't attacked Iran? Because they were talking about how, oh, it's going to start World War III because Russia's going to get involved. What happened to that? Because Russia's not getting involved. Well, if it tells you nothing else, it definitely tells you that something's amiss. Patel announces Southern California raids targeting La M, gang of gangs. And again, these cartel gangs like Tren de Aragua and La M and these fellas, these are the groups from which the sleeper cells are operating. They're providing the weapons through drug sales, or they're collecting the weapons through drug sales, and they're providing the equipment. Excuse me. The equipment, the safe houses, the funding, everything. And La M is being called the gang of gangs because they're the next biggest threat aside from Tren de Aragua, who has basically been dismantled at this point. I'm sure there's still elements of them operating, but they're not nearly as strong as they once were. So now the next target is La M. And I'm just showing you this because this is confirmation that these operations, these ICE operations, and these FBI operations and Homeland Security HSI operations are still ongoing. They haven't stopped. It's still happening. But you notice we're not seeing those big protests anymore. Have you guys noticed that? The anti-ICE protests have died down, but the ICE operations are still going on. Have you noticed that? Guess why? Remember the FBI was investigating and going after the funders and the organizers of these protests? Well, I think they might have got them because we saw the same thing happen with the Black Lives Matter riots in 2020. The military, it wasn't the FBI back then because they were still corrupt, but it was the military going, special forces going after the funders and the organizers of those protests, those riots. And then all of a sudden, poof, no more riots. Meanwhile, Negroes were still getting shot by the police, but no more riots. Who knew? So Jason M. Schmidt says La M is big time. They're the Mexican mafia. Well, there you go. There you go. The Mexican mafia. And they kind of have, since the cartels have been at war with each other, what I've been hearing through the grapevines is that the Mexican mafia are actually the ones, you know, running things now. Now, let's talk about the Iran thing. So Iran says, this was back in April, Iran says Strait of Hormuz will close again amid U.S. blockade. And again, we have the biggest, most powerful military in the world, don't we? I'd say so. How the hell is Iran maintaining control of the Strait of Hormuz when we have air superiority, sea superiority, and can literally obliterate the Iranian Navy and military in minutes. Like, we have enough technology and enough high-tech weapons to do this. We have directed energy weapons, weather weapons, all that shit. You know why? Because the whole war is being staged and Trump's allowing this. Because this feeds the narrative of Trump losing the war. Live updates. Risk of Iran war reigniting as Trump renews threats. Tehran says no plan to attend peace talks. This was back in April. And Tehran was saying they had no plans to attend peace talks because they already had their peace talks. They came out and told the public that no agreements were reached, but agreements were reached because we don't know what was said in that meeting, but we can certainly see what's going on. Trump's allowing Iran to do shit that, well, if they were really at war, they wouldn't be allowed to do, plain and simple. The Iran regime said Monday that it has no plans to attend peace talks in Pakistan with President Trump's top 3 negotiators, including Vice President J.D. Vance, as Tehran balks at what it considers unreasonable and unrealistic demands by the White House. And all that with the peace talks and the unrealistic demands and all that shit, all that is just to buy time to drag things out. That's all it is. The standoff over the Strait of Hormuz intensified over the weekend as U.S. forces fired on and then seized an Iranian vessel, and with Tehran refusing to accept diplomacy amid the ongoing blockade of its ports and exports. Now, the Iranian vessel that was seized by U.S. forces, that's all they're saying. They're not saying what type of vessel it was. They're not saying, in this article at least, they didn't say who was on that vessel. If it was military or civilian, I would assume it was military if they fired on it. But if it was military, who's to say it wasn't Israeli Mossad agents on that boat looking to cause some havoc, looking to ignite a real firefight with the U.S. But if the U.S. is there helping the real Iranians remove the infiltrators from their government, then it wouldn't make sense for the U.S. to have an open naval battle with the Iranians. But it could happen if there's an attack, a direct attack on a U.S. naval ship by Iranian Navy. And that could ignite an actual war, an actual firefight. Now the staged event now becomes, a bloodbath, basically. So these Mossad agents would then dress up as Iranian soldiers, Iranian Navy men, get on an Iranian boat and go start fucking with the U.S. ships in order to start a fight. I mean, is that not what the Small Hats did in right before Tulsa, Oklahoma got bombed? Yes, it was. They went to the black folks and said, hey, y'all need to get ready because some white folks going to come kill y'all. Then they went to the white folks and said, y'all need to get ready because some niggers about to come kill y'all. And then before you know it, the white people and the black folks was at it. It was instigated. And again, if the U.S. is there helping the Iranians get rid of the Israeli infiltrators, then they would know to expect Israeli provocateurs disguised as Iranians trying to start shit on the water. So there is a very high probability that these were not actual Iranian soldiers, but it also could have been rogue elements of the Iranian Navy trying to start shit of their own because they really believe we're at war. I mean, isn't that not what the whole world believes? With no clear path to a diplomatic resolution of the 7-week war and the U.S.-Iran ceasefire set to expire on Tuesday evening in the U.S., uncertainty over when the strait might reopen is pushing global oil prices back up and weighing on U.S. stock futures. And that's another thing. What's going to happen with these rising gas prices is all that Venezuelan oil is going to come in to offset that. And then people won't be so mad about Trump taking the Venezuela oil no more. They're gonna be like, well, phew, it's a good thing he took it because boy, I was getting tired of paying that $6 because gas fucking hit like $4.50 the other day. I was like, God damn. Now, moving on from Iran, let's get to this White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter. And you guys waited an hour and 44 minutes for this. And this is the best part of it all, because this to me is the icing on the cake of what Trump's doing and the fact that he's not operating in Israel's favor. And I'll tell you why. But for now, here's a list of all the theories floating around about last night's shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Theory number one, the boring one. Cole Allen, 31, registered Democrat from California, traveled by train, studied the hotel layout, found an unmonitored entry point, wanted to target Trump and cabinet members, lone wolf, political hatred, case closed, move. Oh, shit. Damn it. Move along, right? That's one theory. The reasonable one. How does a man with a shotgun, handgun, and knives get anywhere near the most press-covered event in Washington? The Secret Service just took an L on venue security, and nobody wants to say it out loud. That's theory number two. But I don't buy either one of these theories. I partly can buy this theory, but this one here, they knew he was coming. There's no way they didn't know he was coming. And they let it happen because, well, it made for great TV, didn't it? The IDF one, and this is the one we're going to discuss tonight, excuse me. And this is based on that picture of him wearing that IDF shirt that we can't seem to figure out if it's real or if it's AI. The IDF one, Allen supposedly posted a photo wearing an IDF sweatshirt before deleting it. Google Trends apparently showed a spike in searches for his name in Israel before the event. So people in Israel were searching his name. Could it be his military buddies because he was about to go active? Well, this is a fact. This is an actual fact. This is not a theory. That there was a spike in searches for his name before the event. So somebody knew he was going there. Both these could not be confirmed with no credible sources. I don't know why he said that. It's supposed to be without any credible sources. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's correct and I'm just reading it wrong. But number 4, the time traveler one. A dormant X account posted only his name in 2023 and nothing else ever. Super weird. That account had a time machine header. Could it be just a coincidence? No, this was pre-planned and they knew that they were going to do it. They were putting this guy in place. He was the selection. And that time machine Twitter account that posted his name, maybe the name was posted there for whoever was doing the recruitment to select who they wanted to select. And once he was selected, he was then groomed and put up to the task. Trained, groomed, and put up to the task. And then he had to go lie in wait until it was time, until the order was given and it was time to strike. Now, the spike in searches on Google for his name before the event happened, I don't know if that was right before the event. It could have been when he put out his manifesto or he made his post about being the the friendly federal assassin, and all his buddies in the Israeli military were looking him up like, oh shit, that's one of our guys, you know? Maybe that could have been it. Who knows? Who knows? But number 5, the MK Ultra one. Caltech graduate, NASA AI intern, and school teacher in LA County. Someone on X asked, does this trajectory make sense to you? And thousands of people agreed it did not. Right. Caltech graduate, NASA AI intern, and then he becomes a school teacher in LA County. Well, that trajectory could have meant that he lost his job with NASA as an AI intern. And once he lost his job and got blackballed, he had to resort to being a school teacher. But in another article, it said he was an independent video game developer. So maybe he was doing both. Because he got blackballed from his government job, or he got placed there so it can seem more inconspicuous. And we know that there's an influx of Trump derangement syndrome infected individuals working as school teachers. So they place him as a school teacher, send him to go give him the order to send him to go do the hit. And because he was a school teacher, everybody assumes, oh, it's just another crazy leftist. So the whole somebody's behind the scenes pulling the strings theory now goes off, gets taken off the table because he fits the profile of a leftist maniac a little too perfectly. See, that's the play with that one, with the school teacher move. If that is the case, that he was planted and given orders. 6, the staged one. Who tries to assassinate a president at an event full of press and Secret Service is apparently a compelling argument for a lot of people. Fox News allegedly cut off a reporter mid-sentence on this topic, which was either significant or a technical glitch. The internet has decided which. I believe they did that on purpose, and they did that on purpose to feed the narrative that it was staged. The time-traveling son of Erica Kirk one. This exists. We will not explain further. Twitter is a free country. Investigation is ongoing. Allen is not cooperating, and the rational explanation remains the most likely. But this is 2026, and we live in a batshit times. I don't know why they put that A there. So who the hell knows? So this was basically an overview of all the theories that are being circulated about this guy, right? But one of the biggest ones is this whole IDF shirt thing. And there he is pictured wearing the IDF shirt. That's what that shirt is that he's wearing. That little corner of the symbol that you're looking at there, that's the Israeli Defense Forces symbol. And it says, my position, I don't believe any of the theories, definitely don't think it was staged. And from my discussions with analysts, there doesn't seem to be any security failures. So if there doesn't seem to be any security failures and it wasn't staged, that means that, well, assuming this guy's position is correct, that means that this dude really ran up in there, but to some degree, security allowed it. He didn't breach security on his own. They allowed him through in order to create the event. And this is the exact thing that I said on my show when I talked about this, wasn't it? Where I said, I believe the part of him going in there trying to kill Trump, he's not a paid actor. He really tried to do that shit. But the whole part about them not knowing he was there and him breaching security, that's the bullshit. They knew he was there. They knew he was coming. They were ready for him. And they had to play it off as if this was just out of the blue. They didn't know what was happening and they just reacted quickly. No, they knew he was fucking coming. So this is the picture of him wearing the IDF sweatshirt. And the pants are like an army green color. And what's funny is this plain olive drab green is the same color that the Israeli military wears. Go look it up. Just Google Israeli military uniforms, Israeli IDF combat uniforms. Go look that up and see what it says. See what it shows you. And then just click images and watch what you'll see. It'll blow your fucking mind. And guys, don't forget to hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal, hit the Venmo, and support the show. Please support the show. We need your support. So the MAGA report says shooter Cole Allen seen here in Instagram post wearing an IDF sweatshirt before his profile was removed. Just sharing this, Cole Allen's photo wearing an IDF sweatshirt has been taken down. He's the shooter who attacked at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This raises concerns that this was a false flag operation. So let's assume this IDF sweatshirt thing is real and it's not AI, right? Let's assume that. Why is Israel trying to kill Trump now? I thought he was bombing Iran on Israel's behalf. Because he's not. And if this is the case that Israel is trying to kill Trump, that means that what Trump is doing in Iran, it's more likely now. This is another bit of supporting evidence that he's going after their spy networks and he's doing damage to their networks. He's doing damage to their operation. He's removing their entrenchment and they're upset about it. So the photos of White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter Cole Allen is an IDF shirt, in an IDF shirt are unconfirmed. So that doesn't mean that they're definitively proven as AI or definitively proven to be real. This is where the debate stems from. It's worth emphasizing this in the time of AI and deep fakes we now live in. Unconfirmed, so it's not proven either way. But there are good arguments on both sides, but it comes down to a matter of trust. You have to choose a side. Who are you going to believe? The side that's saying it's AI or the side that says it's real? Well, that's where I come in, and this is where I'm going to help you make that decision. Because I have an article from the side that says it's AI, and then I have some more source material from the other side that says it is absolutely a real picture. And I think it's odd that they took his social media down, but they do this with all these major crime figures, don't they? The viral photo allegedly showing Cole Allen wearing an IDF sweatshirt originated from social media posts claiming it came from his now deleted Instagram. It was amplified heavily in conspiracy threads, and Meta reportedly removed the original post, but no law enforcement agency or major news outlet has authenticated it to be clear. Right, because law enforcement is not really interested in whether proving that photo being real or not. They're interested in prosecuting this guy for what he did, if the prosecution even happens. And as far as major news outlets, well, Israel controls those. So if it was Israel that did the hit, of course they're not going to confirm that he's wearing one of their fucking uniforms. You see? But anyway, let's continue. The Pakistan rugby shirt version, also circulating, probably a counter narrative, uses the exact same base photo, has the same lack of verification, just a different agenda. And that's to muddy the waters. And this is the image that they're talking about. Well, let me finish reading and then we'll look at the image. What the fuck just happened? What is this? Okay, I was just trying to blow the damn image up. Like, what the hell? Where we at? Okay, here we are. I'll stop messing with it. All this is noise until authorities give us reason to believe otherwise. We're sharing what we see in the moment, but we'll always make the effort to be completely transparent when we believe something to be fake. That is very likely the case here with this, right? So now it's a matter of which one's the real one. Would the real Cole Allen please stand up? Him wearing the Pakistan jersey or him wearing the IDF sweatshirt? Which one is real? What do you guys think? The Pakistan jersey or the sweatshirt? Which one's real? And if one's real and one's fake, somebody put out the fake one to muddy the waters. Definitely to muddy the waters. And we've seen this done to conservative circles before, to so-called conspiracy circles before, right? Where misinformation would be deliberately put out and conservatives would pick it up and start sharing it and damage their credibility. You know, that happened to me a couple of times many years ago. But after those couple of times of it happening, I started to learn to, one, trust my instincts better, and two, do deeper research. So what do you guys think? Yeah, Sonny Danielson, he's definitely connected. He's definitely connected. Yep, he was Savannah Guthrie's driver. Was he a driver or assistant? Because I talked about that on the last show, but I can't remember what job it was. And I think his wife is still an assistant for either for Savannah Guthrie or for NBC. But yeah, that's really real. That's really true. So we don't know which one's real, right? I think this one's real. Honestly, I think this is the real one. I think this one's fake because the pants don't really align with the shirt. It doesn't look like it aligns with the shirt correctly. But I could just be misreading it. But so we have the tale of two narratives, right? Is this image AI or is it real? Well, we got one side saying that it's AI, and that just so happens to be the Israel National News and other mainstream outlets. And this is what they say: investigation. Photo of White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter in IDF shirt is AI. Well, that's a pretty bold statement and a pretty definitive statement. So let's look at this article and see what their investigation uncovered. I already don't trust them because Israel National News, I don't trust anything Israel. Widely shared image of would-be presidential assassin Cole Allen wearing an IDF shirt is an AI forgery used to spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. New York Post and Storyful investigation finds. Well, that sounds a bit fishy and embellished already. Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories? What, like Israel was behind the assassination attempt, just like they were behind the assassination of JFK? Like those kind of conspiracy theories? I don't know. It already sounds wrong because they're already saying too much. Excuse me. Sorry. The viral photograph of White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter Cole Allen wearing an IDF t-shirt is an artificial intelligence forgery, according to an investigation by the New York Post and Storyful. Well, the New York Post tends to have a little more credibility than most other outlets, but again, they're still mainstream. The photograph was widely shared on social media in the wake of the shooting on Saturday night and has been used by conspiracy theorists to link Israel, Zionists, and Jews to the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump, where no connection exists. So they say. Now, here's where it gets good. Analysis of the image shows that Allen's face has been altered in ways that are consistent with the use of AI, including the removal and relocation of facial moles and a change in the shape of his ear. His fingers are likewise changed in the image. Changed from what, though? Because it sounds like they're describing this picture, not this picture. But nevertheless, where are we at? His fingers are likewise, but changed from what? You see how they're just making these vague statements? Changed from what? Where's the original? Where's an original image of him? Show an original image of him next to the image of him in the IDF shirt and show us how his fingers are different. Show us how his facial moles have changed. Show us these things, but they're just saying it. So that's a little problematic in my opinion. LTO says nothing is more artificial than the news. Right. And shout out to Irvin. Irvin says, "What's good, citizen man? Missed you, sir." Well, I missed you guys too, man. I'm glad to be here. The official investigation into the shooting has found that Allen appears to have shared posts on Blue Sky critical of Trump and his administration, including calls for the president's removal. In a 100-page manifesto justifying the attempted assassination, one of Allen's criticisms of President Trump referenced children blown up in the Iran war, a criticism that is inconsistent with claims that Allen is a Zionist. Well, if he is a Zionist, then that whole children blown up in the Iran war thing is just all part of his cover to make it look like he's not a Zionist. Like, I mean, couldn't be more obvious. But so this is what Israel is saying, right? This is what the Israel National News is saying about this guy. But check this out. I took the liberty of running the image through Chat GPT. And wouldn't you know, the answer that I got from Chat GPT, the image, see, Chat GPT, image. The answer that I got from Chat GPT was different from, actually the opposite of what the Israel National News says. So I asked ChatGPT, is this an AI generated image or not? And ChatGPT immediately responded and says, this doesn't look AI generated. Huh? Really? And then ChatGPT goes into, at the bottom there, it says, here's why. So they kind of give a rundown similar to what the Israel National News did. But Israel National News was very vague and didn't give any real point of reference to compare their claims to, right? Like the moles changing on his face and the fingers changing and all that. How do we know what his fingers actually look like? So they made these claims that we really can't really verify. So ChatGPT says the image is AI generated because of natural imperfections. It says, it says the image is not AI generated because of natural imperfections. So it's an authentic image because of natural imperfections. And then it goes on to explain what these imperfections are, unlike the Israel National News that did not explain shit. The lighting, skin texture, and shadows are uneven in a realistic way. AI images often smooth or over-process these. Hands and details. The fingers and arm portions look normal. AI images frequently struggle with hands or small object geometry. And this is true because for years we've seen AI images and we're able to tell they were AI images because the person had like 6 fingers and shit. Okay. It is also an authentic image because of background consistency. Then they go on to explain the furniture, lamp, and objects in the room all align logically with perspective and lighting. No warped edges or blended artifacts. And you notice every claim that ChatGPT is giving me, we can go back to the image and verify that this is what that what they're saying is it actually exists in the image. It's also authentic because of compression quality. It looks like a typical compressed photo, possibly from social media or an older phone. Well, guess where it was said the image originated from? You guessed it, social media. Not a freshly generated high resolution AI render. So now, and then it says, that said, an image can be real but misused. It could be an old photo of a different person or taken out of context. So the key issue isn't whether it's AI, it's whether the claim attached to it is accurate. But there is no claim attached to this image, ChatGPT. So why are you even telling me this? So it's a matter of who do you trust? You know, who do you trust? Are you for sure? Do you trust ChatGPT more than you trust the Israel National News? Well, I would tend to trust ChatGPT a little more than I trust Israel National News. I'll tell you one thing. ChatGPT has done a hell of a lot more for me than Israel has. That's one. Number two, Israel National News, no bueno, no credibility. In my book, they have no credibility. Anything coming from Israel, the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, whatever you want to call it, no bueno in my book. No credibility. They've destroyed their own credibility. And the fact that they run the media over here and they lie so damn much in our media, Who's to say they're not lying in their own media? And yes, ChatGPT can have its own bias in some situations and some, given certain questions. And I've seen it happen. But I made no reference to the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting or who this guy even was. I just put up the image and asked if it's AI, and ChatGPT says it is not AI. So let's go with ChatGPT, since we don't trust the Israel National News, but we can trust ChatGPT a little more. What are the implications of this if this guy really is IDF? What does this imply? Well, this obviously implies that Trump is doing something to undermine Israel. And whatever it is that he's doing to undermine Israel, it's hurting him real bad. And I believe it's the war with Iran. They're going after the Israeli infiltrators or the Israel spies who are operating in the Iranian government. And they don't have to be Israelis to be spies for Israel. In fact, it's better if they're Iranian citizens working as spies for Israel. So if in fact Iranians are getting killed, it's safe to assume that these Iranians that are being targeted are the very spies that are operating the spy network or operating within the spy network. And if that's the case, you got the Israeli spy network being busted up in Iran. You got Europe being put under economic siege with the Strait of Hormuz being locked down. You got the ICE raids taking out the sleeper cells here in America. Everything's being done to undermine their system of control. So now they got to do something. Let's send this guy in. He's been planted in America. He's in the perfect position to pose as a leftist, and we can use him to do it. So he does it because he's under orders. So if this image is in fact real, as ChatGPT seems to think, then that could mean that this guy was under orders from the Israeli government to take out Trump. Now, for the people who are again going on the surface with the Iran war and believe that Trump is acting in favor of Israel, now they'll begin to make the case, and they can, because it would be a fair argument given, if what we're being told on the surface is actually that. But again, nothing's what it seems. Then this guy could have been a hired actor from Israel to stage this event and make Trump look like a victim to prop him up and give him more political clout and this and that. But again, Trump has had a consistent 10-year political run of being basically the number one political figure in the news, and he does not need any major stunts for political clout. You feel what I'm saying? So there's less logic behind that argument than the logic of he's undermining Israel. And because he's undermining Israel, Israel's going to try to kill him now. JFK undermined Israel. And look what they did to him. There's more logic behind that explanation. So that's the explanation I choose to go with. Now, this leads us into the big question. Why is Trump losing the war with Iran? Why is he staging? If this war with Iran is staged, why is he making it appear as if he's losing the war? Well, aside from the fact that he's helping Iran gain military superiority, Iran gain military superiority, he also has to lose this war with Iran. You know why? Think about this. If Israel has been doing all the nasty shit they've been doing around the world, and nobody has challenged them because of fear of being retaliated against by the U.S. military. That means that the U.S. military is Israel's attack dog, doesn't it? Wasn't it Israel that tried to get us into the war? Wasn't it Israel and George Bush and his Zionist buddies that got us into the war in Afghanistan and Iraq? Wasn't it? Remember ISIS? They flared up in Libya, killed Gaddafi, and moved on to a whole bunch of Middle Eastern countries, and then they hopped right over Israel and went into Syria, north of Israel. But they never touched Israel. I thought these were radical Muslims that hate everybody, especially Jews. Why did they leave the Jews alone? Because they were ran by them. Then it comes to find out the ISIS commander, one of the ISIS commanders is an Israeli Mossad agent. So if there's one, there's a dozen more, at least. So what happens now is if America loses a war to Iran, and Iran establishes military superiority over the United States in the eyes of the world, well, guess what happens? If they decide to level Israel, who the fuck's going to stop them? Remember, we just lost a war to Iran. We can't go to war with Iran again. We just lost. They just whooped our ass. So it's like Israel is the annoying little brother. We're the big brother that's supposed to protect the annoying little brother. And the annoying little brother happens to pick on a bully that whoops big brother's ass. Now big brother ain't there to protect little brother no more. So guess what? Now the bully's going to whoop little brother's ass, and there'll be nobody there to save him. And this is why Trump has to lose the war against Iran. This is why it has to look bad. It has to look bad in order to give Iran a clear path to level Israel. Because again, the only other nations in the world with enough military firepower to take on the United States head to head is Russia and China. And remember whose side Russia and China are on? Iran's side. So if Iran defeats the United States, they have superiority. If they have superiority, there's no other military power on earth that will be able to stop them once they go after the nation of Israel. But you see, all the spy networks and the sleeper cells all around the world had to be mopped up first before these moves could be made. Because if these moves were made with all those elements still in place, the retaliation against the civilian populations of those nations would be catastrophic. You guys see the play? Do you see the play there? Because think about it. If Trump, big bad Trump, defeats Iran and opens up the Strait of Hormuz, guess what? The EU get all their shipments, so now they can restock and resupply and rebuild their economy. Iran is defeated, so if they dare attack Israel, they'll get bombed again. Israel gets to continue controlling the world through all methods, even nefarious ones, especially nefarious ones like blackmail, murder for hire, shit like that. You see? So the world has more to lose if America wins the war against Iran. But the world has everything to gain if we lose the war against Iran, because that now empowers Iran to basically take out the trash. Not to say all Israelis are trash, but the people running that country most definitely are. So you guys see the play now. So if this image is real, That basically supports my theory that Trump is working against Israel because we got Israel trying to kill Trump. We got Trump losing the war to Iran, which empowers Iran. We got the sleeper cell networks being mopped up in America, the spy networks being mopped up in Iran. And this guy coming in there, starting that shit, he really was sent to do that. And I'll tell you something about these Israeli spies. They are good. They are good. How do you think they were able to take over Iran? Remember, Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, exposed publicly to the world that the top guy in Iran's anti-spy agency was a spy himself. That's how good they are. They're great infiltrators. So would it have been too difficult for this guy to infiltrate, the public school system and pose as a leftist? And when the order was given, go do that shit. But now that Trump capitalized on it, he's now going to have tighter security, which is going to make it harder for them to get to him. And with that tighter security, we'll start to see more aggressive measures being taken against Israel. Maybe not physical attacks, kinetic attacks, and bombings by us, but we're going to definitely start to see a fallback from protecting them, from this insatiable need to protect them. And Iran's going to basically have their way. Now, that's my prediction for the near future. I could be wrong, but I believe at some point in the near future, we're going to get news that Israel is under heavy attack, and what they did to those people in Palestine and Gaza, Iran's going to do to them. And the world won't bat an eye. At least I won't, and I know you guys won't. So, the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter, my conclusion, I'm going to go with ChatGPT. This is a real image. He's really wearing that IDF sweater, and he's real IDF, and he was sent by Israel because Trump's undermining Israel. Why is Trump losing the war with Iran? Because once Israel's attack dog, the USA, is defeated, Israel now will face the brunt of Iran's retaliation. And this is why they were trying to replace Ayatollah with I think it's the son or the grandson of the Shah, or the nephew of the former Shah. Because when the Shah was in power, he was cool with the deep state. And then when Ayatollah came to power, all of a sudden Iran became the pariah, the scourge of the world. The world's number one sponsor of terrorism. No, Israel's the world's number one sponsor of terrorism. Hands down. We just watched them do it for how many years against Gaza and Lebanon? They're bombing the shit out of Lebanon too. And they hit some targets in Syria too. How about that? So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears open, keep your ears to the streets. And remember, Russia not getting involved is proof positive that this whole war is staged. And if this war is in fact staged, the question is, why? And my answer to that question is we're helping the Iranians rid their government of the Israeli foreign infiltrators, or the Israeli infiltrators. The public doesn't know this, but I'm sure the Israeli government does. Because the more spies in Iran that they lose is the more they'll start to realize, oh shit, they're killing our people. We got to go get Trump. And the fact is, maybe they sent this goofball because they didn't know how much of a goofball he was. They thought he could do the job. They thought he was trained and ready to do it and wouldn't fuck it up. Or maybe they couldn't get any elite killers because all the real killers know that, hey, that's a suicide mission. I'm not doing it. You know, real assassins turn down offers. They turn down jobs. They don't take every job they get. So maybe all the real ones turned down the job because they saw how impossible it was. And they got this dummy to do it because, well, he's dumb. So anyway, guys, I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to actually feel tired. If you haven't yet, check out all the previous streams, because especially the recent ones about Iran, because I break it all down and I show all the proofs and you guys can get a better understanding of where I'm coming from. And, you know, oh shit, shout out to Calvert for the Cash App. Says, keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate you, Calvert. So it looks like we got us a looks like we got us a little $5 challenge going. All three people that hit the Cash App put 5 on it. So anybody else want to put 5 on it? Shout out to you. I appreciate it. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, guys. And shout out to my man Todd for the Venmo. Appreciate you, Todd. I don't think anybody hit the PayPal. I don't think. Man, where's my man Lee 14224? He's probably gonna hit me on a double up on the next one. So shout out to you guys. Appreciate you guys for being here. Appreciate you guys. Sorry, I was just looking at my emails and started getting carried away because PayPal, apparently they don't notify me any other way but through my email. So when I want to check the PayPal, I go to my email and I just click the link and it bounces me to the website. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. Oh shit! Shout out to Helen. We got another 5 on the Cash App. Appreciate you, Helen. She says thank you. Well, thank you, Helen. That's very kind of you. It's very kind of you. Anybody else want to join the $5 crew? Appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate you. That's love right there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis and can appreciate the analysis. I hope it made sense to you. If it didn't, feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I do take the time to check the comments from time to time, and you may or may not get a response from me. But if it's a valid enough question, what I will do is, if I can't answer it in the comments or don't have time to answer it in the comments, or maybe the answer is too lengthy to put in the comments, what I'll do is I'll use the question as content for the show. Because if it is, in fact, a valid question, I'm sure you're not the only one wondering that. And even if you are the only one wondering that, whatever answer it is to that question that I give you will also help to enlighten others. So, you know, and if you want your name to be said, well, actually, it's the comments. So you're already publicly saying it. So me saying it on the show makes no difference, because everybody who sees it on the show will be able to see it in the comments. So I'm not even going to bother with that one. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the love and the support. Keep your eyes and your ears to the Iran thing, and watch all these channels, how they all just float on the surface when it comes to this Iran thing. They're not looking any deeper into anything. You know, it amazes me, but it also allows us to see who's the controlled opposition and who the real ones are, and who are the fly-by-night Monday night armchair quarterbacks versus the people that actually do the research and connect the dots and put the pieces together, you know, people like me. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the love and the support. Appreciate all the donations. Thank you guys. I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh shit, we got 5 tonight. I ain't even set the goal at 10, but shout out to y'all, man. That is love. That is love. Much love. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. Don't forget, lest we not forget, and go all the way back to the beginning of the beginning. In the beginning, there was Citizen Man and there was Rumble. Make sure you guys get over to Rumble and follow me on Rumble. And anybody else that donates to the show, I appreciate you guys in advance. And if you didn't get a shout out tonight, I will definitely shout you out on the next show. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. And the PayPal is active. They just censor a whole lot of shit. And the Citizen Man backup channel. Don't forget the Citizen Man backup channel. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you adieu. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.